A group of prisoners have been confined in a cavern since birth with no knowledge of the outside world. They are chained facing a wall, unable to turn their heads, while a fire behind them gives off a faint light. Occasionally, people pass by the fire carrying figures of animals and other objects that cast shadows on the wall. The prisoners name and classify these illusions, believing they're perceiving actual entities. Suddenly, one prisoner is freed and brought outside for the first time. The sunlight hurts his eyes, and he finds the new environment disorienting. When told that the things around him are real, while the shadows were mere reflections, he cannot believe it. The shadows appeared much clearer to him, but gradually his eyes adjust until he can look at reflections in the water, at objects directly, and finally at the sun, whose light is the ultimate source of everything he has seen. The prisoner returns to the cave to share his discovery, but he is no longer used to the darkness and has a hard time seeing the shadows on the wall. The other prisoners think the journey has made him stupid and blind, and violently resist any attempts to free them. Plato introduces this passage as an analogy of what it's like to be a philosopher trying to educate the public. Most people are not just comfortable in their ignorance, but hostile to anyone who points it out. In fact, the real-life Socrates was sentenced to death by the Athenian government for disrupting the social order, and his student Plato spends much of the Republic disparaging Athenian democracy, while promoting rule by philosopher kings. With the cave parable, Plato may be arguing that the masses are too stubborn and ignorant to govern themselves. But the allegory has captured imaginations for 2,400 years because it can be read in far more ways. Importantly, the allegory is connected to the theory of forms developed in Plato's other dialogues, which holds that, like the shadows on the wall, things in the physical world are flawed reflections of ideal forms, such as roundness or beauty. In this way, the cave leads to many fundamental questions, including the origin of knowledge, the problem of representation, and the nature of reality itself. For theologians, the ideal forms exist in the mind of a creator. For philosophers of language viewing the forms as linguistic concepts, the theory illustrates the problem of grouping concrete things under abstract terms. And others still wonder whether we can really know that the things outside the cave are any more real than the shadows. As we go about our lives, can we be confident in what we think we know? Perhaps one day a glimmer of light may punch a hole in your most basic assumptions. Will you break free to struggle towards the light, even if it costs you your friends and family? Or stick with comfortable and familiar illusions? Truth or habit? Light or shadow? Hard choices, but if it's any consolation, you're not alone. There are lots of us down here.
Once upon a time, there was a vain emperor who loved clothes. He made sure he always looked splendid all the time and had a different outfit for every day of the year. One day, 2 strangers came to town, stating they were weavers and that they could manufacture the finest clothing that could ever be imagined. The word spread quickly and came to the emperor's ears. "If they can truly make wonderful clothes, I want to meet them," the emperor said. And so the emperor's footman arranged a meeting with the 2 strangers. A little round man and a long thin man arrived at the palace, and they bowed before the emperor.
"Slimus and Slick at your service, your highness," they said.
"I hear you make wonderful clothes. Is it true?" the emperor asked.
"Oh, yes. Not only wonderful clothes, but magical clothes, your majesty," Slimus said. "Only clever people can see them. Stupid people can't."
I have no magical clothes, the emperor thought. I need to have them. "Are the clothes splendid?" the emperor asked.
"Oh, very splendid, your highness," Slick replied, "but very expensive, as you can well imagine."
"Take all the gold you want," cried the emperor. "Just make me those clothes." 1 week later, Slimus and Slick returned to the palace to show the emperor the clothes they had made.
"Here are your beautiful clothes, your majesty. Don't they look splendid?"
The emperor and all his footmen gulped, because they couldn't see a thing. None of them wanted to seem stupid. So when the emperor said, "Splendid! They are splendid!" all his footmen agreed.
"Oh, yes, your majesty. These are by far your most splendid clothes."
The emperor decided to wear his magical clothes to the royal procession that very day.
"Here is your cloak," said Slimus. "It's as light as a feather." "Oh, your highness, your clothes fit you so well," added Slick.
The emperor admired himself in the mirror. "Don't I look magnificent? People will talk about me for years to come."
"Yes, your majesty," everyone agreed, staring at the emperor.
"Open the palace gates," ordered the emperor, "and let the royal procession begin." The crowd gasped when they saw the emperor. Everyone had heard that only clever people could see his clothes, so everyone cried out, "How splendid His Majesty looks in his new clothes, and look how well they fit!" Of course, no one could see the clothes, but none of them would admit that, because no one wanted to declare himself a fool. Until a small child cried out,
"The emperor has no clothes on!"
Then everyone looked at each other and began laughing out loud.
"The emperor has no clothes on!"
The emperor realized he had been fooled by Slick and Slimus, and that he was indeed naked. He blushed bright red, but thought it was better to continue the procession under the illusion that anyone who couldn't see his clothes was a fool. He walked stiffly, while behind him a page held his imaginary mantle.